It was a dark and stormy night. The kind of night where you could feel the chill in your bones and the wind was howling like a pack of wolves. John had just finished a long day at work, and all he wanted to do was get home and relax. But as he made his way down the winding road that led to his secluded cabin in the woods, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. As he pulled into his driveway, he noticed something strange in the woods. It was a figure just beyond the trees watching him. John couldn't make out any details in the darkness, but he knew it was there. He quickly grabbed his flashlight and headed towards the woods, trying to get a closer look. As he got closer, the figure began to move. It was quick, like it was trying to evade him. John followed, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't explain it, but he felt drawn to this figure, like he needed to know what it was. As he chased the figure deeper into the woods, the rain began to pick up. It was coming down in sheets now, making it almost impossible to see. But John pressed on, determined to catch up to the figure. Finally, he caught a glimpse of it up ahead. It was standing in a clearing just beyond a small hill. John made his way up the hill, trying to get a better look. But as he reached the top, he froze in terror. The figure was not alone. It was surrounded by dozens of others, all staring directly at him. They were pale, with sunken eyes and twisted features. Their mouths were twisted into grins, like they were pleased to see him. John tried to run, but his feet felt like they were stuck in mud. He couldn't move. The figures began to close in on him, their grins growing wider and more twisted. John screamed, but his voice was drowned out by the howling wind. Just as the figures were about to grab him, John woke up. It was all just a nightmare. He was safe in his bed, surrounded by the familiar comforts of his home. He breathed a sigh of relief and got up to make some coffee. As he entered the kitchen, he noticed something strange. There was a note on the counter, written in a language he didn't recognize. It was scrawled in red ink, and it sent chills down his spine. Suddenly, he heard a noise in the other room. It sounded like someone was walking around. John slowly made his way towards the noise, his heart pounding in his chest. As he turned the corner, he saw it. The figure from his dream, standing in his living room. But this time, it was real. It was staring directly at him, its twisted grin sending shivers down his spine. John tried to run, but the figure was too quick. It grabbed him by the arm, its grip like iron. John struggled, but it was no use. The figure was too strong. It dragged him into the darkness, into a world of nightmares and horrors. John tried to scream, but his voice was drowned out by the howling wind. He was lost, trapped in a nightmare that would never end. The Haunting of Alchemist's Castle. Once upon a time, there was a castle located in the heart of a dense, dark forest. This castle was not like any other castle, as it had a long history of being haunted. Many people who dared to enter its walls never returned. Those who did survive would tell tales of the horrors they witnessed inside. The castle had been built in the 13th century by a wealthy lord who was obsessed with alchemy. He spent his entire fortune on building the castle and creating potions that he believed would grant him eternal life. He was known to have conducted experiments on the castle's inhabitants, many of whom disappeared without a trace. His obsession consumed him, and he died alone in the castle, surrounded by his experiments and his failed attempts at immortality. After his death, the castle fell into disrepair and became a haven for ghosts and spirits. The locals believed that the Lord's spirit still roamed the castle, and that he was not alone. Many reported seeing the ghosts of the Lord's victims wandering the halls, screaming in agony. One day, a group of friends decided to explore the haunted castle. They had heard the stories of the castle's dark past, but did not believe in ghosts. They were thrill-seekers and were eager to experience the thrill of exploring a haunted castle. As they approached the castle, they could feel a cold chill in the air. The castle looked ominous, and the overgrown vegetation made it even more eerie. They could hear the sound of creaking doors and the howling of the wind. The group cautiously entered the castle, but as soon as they crossed the threshold, the doors slammed shut behind them. They were trapped. They tried to open the doors, but they would not budge. They were forced to explore the castle and find a way out. As they walked down the long, dark hallways, they could hear footsteps behind them, but when they turned around, no one was there. They could hear the whispers of the ghosts, and the cold, clammy air way to the castle's laboratory. The room was full of strange potions and equipment. Suddenly, one of the group members touched a vial of potion and it shattered on the ground. The room was filled with a thick green smoke, and they started to cough and choke. As the smoke cleared, they could see a figure standing in the corner of the room. It was the ghost of the Lord, and he was not alone. The ghosts of his victims were with him, and they were angry. They had been trapped in the castle for centuries and were looking for revenge. The group tried to run, but the ghosts were too fast. They were trapped in the laboratory and there was no escape. The ghosts started to taunt them, and the group members could feel their cold, bony fingers touch their skin. They could feel their breath on their necks, and they knew they were not going to make it out alive. Suddenly, the doors to the laboratory burst open, and the group was free. They ran out of the castle, never to return again. They did not talk about what they had seen inside the castle, but they would never forget it. They knew that the haunted castle was still there, waiting for its next victims. The castle's ghosts had been awakened, and they would not